41,000 miles. That is what one rideshare driver put on a single car in 11 months. In a normal driver's hands, that same car would have taken 3.5 years to get there. Hold on to that number, because it is about to turn a very good business decision into a very expensive one. Here is the scene. Monday morning, a parking lot. A man hands a set of keys to a driver he met 4 days ago. Contract signed, $250 a week, starting today. The driver pulls away happy because he finally has a car that qualifies on the app. And until this morning, he had no way to work. The owner stands there watching it disappear down the road, and he is happy too, because he is thinking the same 2 words everybody thinks in that moment: passive income. They shook hands, and both of them believed they had just won. Now jump forward 11 months. The car comes back. And here is the important part. Nothing went wrong. It is not wrecked, it is clean. The driver paid every single week on time without one complaint. This is the version where everything works. The odometer is up 41,000 miles, and the car that was worth $22,000 is now worth about $14,000. You think you understand this business because it looks like the simplest business on earth. You own a thing, somebody pays to use it, you collect. That is renting. Except a car is not a house. When a tenant moves out, the house is still a house. It did not get smaller. This does. Every week that driver is out there earning, your asset is being consumed, and not slowly, at a speed almost nobody prices correctly, including the people already doing this for a living. So the real question was never, how much does he pay me a week? The real question, the one that decides whether this is income or a slow liquidation, is this: how much of the car does that week cost? Because you are not renting out a vehicle, you are selling its life in installments, and the price is already set by a table you have never looked at. So, 3 things. First, we build a number that measures exactly how fast you are consuming your own asset, and once you have it, you cannot unsee it on any vehicle you own. Second, the costs nobody puts in the spreadsheet: the commercial insurance, the true utilization rate, and the car sitting still. And third, we're going to take apart a real company. 105 of these cars listed for sale right now at $1.2 million, with the numbers published. And we're going to run the calculation the seller did not run. Quick, honest pause before we build that number. This channel is tiny. It's me and a pile of filings nobody reads. No team, no budget, and no way to reach anyone except through people like you. So if you want to see where the rest of this goes, subscribing costs you nothing and changes everything. That one click is the difference between a few hundred people seeing this and a few thousand. That's all I'll ask. Now, let's build it. Start with the number that changes everything, because it is not the rent. The average American driver puts about 13,000 miles a year on a car. A rideshare vehicle puts on 30 to 50,000. That is not a heavier version of the same thing. That is a different category of asset entirely, doing a different job on a different clock. So let's build that clock, because you need it. If a car has an economic life of roughly 10 years in normal use, the years where it still runs well, still resells, still costs more to keep than to replace, and you run it at 3 times that speed, you do not own a 10-year asset. You own a 3-year asset that you paid 10-year money for. I call that the mileage clock. How many years of a vehicle's life you consume per calendar year. Rideshare runs at 3. It is a rule of thumb, not a laboratory measurement, but it reframes the entire purchase. Now put a dollar figure on it. Rideshare vehicles depreciate 20 to 30% a year, specifically because of that mileage. On a $25,000 car, that is $5,000 to $7,500 gone every year. Set that next to what you are collecting. $250 a week is $13,000 a year, if it rents every single week, which it will not, and we will get to that. So before a single expense, before insurance, before one oil change, roughly half of your gross rent has already been eaten by the car quietly becoming worth less. Which brings us to the difference between the two people who actually do this. Owner 1 has a 2020 Camry, paid off, no note. He rents it at $250 a week, and after insurance at $200 a month and maintenance at $150, he nets somewhere between $650 and $750 a month. Call it $8,000 a year. Owner 2 did what most people do. He bought a car specifically for this, a newer RAV4, financed $450 a month. He rents it higher, $300 a week, which grosses around $1,200 a month. Then the note comes out. Then insurance at $250. Then maintenance at $175. He nets about $325 a month. Same business, same kind of car, same city. The only structural difference is whether the bank is standing in line ahead of you, and it cuts the outcome by more than half. And here is the part that should stop you. Neither of those numbers subtracts depreciation. Put the $5,000 to $7,000 a year back in, and owner 2 is not making $300 a month. He is losing money and being paid weekly not to notice. So why does anybody do this? Because on a spreadsheet, it works. The rent arrives every Friday, the number at the bottom is positive, and depreciation never sends you an invoice. It just quietly waits at the end. But there are 3 more costs missing from that math, and one of them explains why half the fleet in a real company is sitting completely still. 3 costs, and the third one is the reason this business quietly fails while looking fine. First, insurance. This is not a personal auto policy. A car being rented commercially to a rideshare driver needs commercial coverage, and that runs $2,000 to $4,000 per vehicle per year. On a car grossing $13,000, that is a fifth of your revenue before anything else. And here is the part that matters. That policy runs whether the car is rented or not. It does not pause. Second, the running cost. Operating a rideshare vehicle comes out to roughly 31 cents a mile, fuel, maintenance, and wear. Now, a good chunk of that is fuel, and in most of these deals, the driver buys the gas. But the maintenance side is yours, and it scales with mileage, not with time. At 40,000 miles a year, you are not doing an oil change every 6 months. You are doing brakes, tires, and a transmission service on a schedule that looks like a taxi's, because that is what it is. And third, the one nobody models and the one that decides everything: utilization. Everybody who runs the numbers on this business does it the same way. $250 a week times 52 weeks times however many cars. It is clean, it is simple, and it has never happened to anybody. Because the car is not rented 52 weeks a year. A driver quits and it takes 11 days to find the next one. The car goes in for service. Somebody returns it early. Somebody stops paying and you spend 2 weeks getting it back. Every one of those is a week with no rent, and the insurance still runs, the note still runs, And the depreciation, which does not care whether anyone is driving, still runs. An empty car costs you almost exactly what a rented car costs you. It just does not pay. Now, all of this is theory until you look at a real one. So let's look at a real one. There is a company in the United States right now listed for sale. It rents cars to Uber and Lyft drivers. It has 105 vehicles in the fleet, with maintenance records, driver contracts, the whole operation. And unlike almost every business you will ever be pitched, it published its numbers. Gross revenue, $615,000. Adjusted earnings, $100,000. Fleet valued at $1 million. Asking price, $1.2 million. Run the first calculation with me. 105 cars at $250 a week for 52 weeks would be $1,360,000 in revenue. The actual revenue is $615,000. That is 45%. Either those cars rent for far less than the market rate, or more than half of that fleet is sitting still at any given moment. 50 or 60 cars, parked, insured, depreciating, earning nothing. That number is not highlighted in the listing, but it is not even the one that matters most, because there is a second calculation nobody ran on that page, and it turns the entire business inside out. Before we run that second calculation, look at the other side of the handshake. Because your entire business depends on whether that driver can survive the week. Here is what his week actually looks like. Most drivers renting a vehicle need to drive 25 to 35 hours a week just to cover the rental cost, not to earn, to break even. He starts every Monday morning in a hole, and the first 2 or 3 days of work are spent climbing out of it before a single dollar becomes his. And the contract is not gentle. Return the car late, and you are looking at $25 to $50 an hour in fees. In some programs, the driver pays for personal miles, miles driven with the app switched off, which means driving his own kids to school in the car he is renting costs him money. One driver in Seattle, renting a Nissan Kicks for $285 a week, described the arrangement as, in her words, highly predatory. And she summed up the whole industry in one sentence. The only people who really make money at this are the ones who own their vehicles. The rental, she said, basically makes you earn your money back before you can make any earnings. Read that again, because she is describing your revenue. And the pressure on that driver is not abstract. Rideshare drivers pay an average of $2,859 a year for full coverage insurance. 44% of them say fuel and maintenance costs are their single biggest problem. And here is the statistic that should concern you more than any of the others. 26% of rideshare drivers do not tell their insurance company that they drive rideshare. Sit with that if you are the owner. Roughly 1 in 4 of the people in this ecosystem is operating with coverage that may not respond when it is needed. And when a car you own is in a crash, and the coverage on the other side turns out to be air, the question of who eats that cost lands on your desk. You did not rent to a business. You rented to a person having a difficult year. That is not an insult. It is the actual customer profile. And it is why this business has a repossession problem, not just a maintenance problem. So let me be genuinely fair, because people do make this work for years, and they are not lucky. 3 things separate them. First, they buy paid off and used. We already saw it. The owner with no note nets roughly double the owner with one on the same rent. The bank is the most expensive passenger in that car. Second, they buy boring, high reliability, cheap parts, stable resale vehicles. Not the newest car, not the nicest, the one whose transmission does not cost $4,000 at 90,000 miles. And third, they manage utilization, not price. 40 weeks rented at $250 beats 25 weeks rented at $350. The amateur optimizes the weekly rate. The professional optimizes the empty week. Do those three things, and this can genuinely work. Skip them, and you get the company we are about to take apart. Back to the listing. 105 cars, $615,000 in revenue, $100,000 in adjusted earnings, a fleet valued at $1 million. On the surface, that reads as a 10% return on the fleet. Not spectacular, but respectable. A real business throwing off six figures. Now apply the mileage clock. These are not commuter cars. Every one of them is being driven 30 to 50,000 miles a year, which means that fleet is depreciating at 20 to 30% annually. On $1 million of vehicles, that is $200,000 to $300,000 a year. Put the two numbers next to each other and say them out loud. The business earns $100,000 a year, and it destroys $200,000 to $300,000 of the thing it earns it with. It is profitable on the page and shrinking in the parking lot. Every dollar of that $100,000 is real. The rent genuinely arrived. The drivers genuinely paid. It just cost more than $1 of car to produce it. And it is listed at $1.2 million. For an asset that dissolves at roughly a quarter of its value every year, while the earnings replace less than half of what dissolved. Now, I need to be careful here, and I want you to hold me to this. I do not know the average age of that fleet. If those cars are already 4 years old and mostly written down, the depreciation curve is flatter than it is on new vehicles, and the picture improves. I do not know whether $1 million in inventory is what those cars cost or what they are worth today. Those are very different numbers, and the listing does not say which one it is. So I am not telling you that business is bad. I am telling you something more useful. That calculation is not on the page, and it is the first one you should run. A rideshare fleet that does not disclose its average vehicle age and its true utilization rate has not shown you numbers. It has shown you a recipe. And the two figures it left out are the only two that determine whether you are buying an income stream or a very slow fire. Now, go back to that Monday morning. The parking lot, the handshake, the keys. $250 a week. Both of them walking away certain they had just won. The driver was right. He had no car and no way to work, and now he has both. It is expensive. The terms are brutal, and it is still better than the alternative he was facing. He knew exactly what he was buying. Access. The owner was wrong, not about the money, about the merchandise. He thought he was renting out a car for a week. He was selling 3 weeks of that car's life every week and charging for one. He was not collecting rent. He was being paid in installments to destroy his own asset. And the installments were smaller than the damage. So who actually wins here? The platform. Every time. It owns no vehicles. It pays no commercial insurance, absorbs no depreciation, buys no tires, and repossesses nothing. It takes a percentage of every ride, from both ends, and when the car finally dies, that is somebody else's Tuesday. The one participant with no asset in the arrangement is the only one guaranteed to profit from it. The owner wins if, and only if, he bought used, bought paid off, and keeps the thing rented. The driver wins if he can hold 30 hours a week together. And all three of them are quietly convinced the risk is sitting with somebody else. So, 4 rules. Rule 1. Run the mileage clock before you buy the car, not after. How many miles will this vehicle actually cover in a year, and how many years of its life does that consume? If the answer is 3, you are not buying a 10-year asset. You are buying a 3-year asset at 10-year prices, and the resale you are imagining does not exist. Rule 2. Put depreciation on the spreadsheet as a weekly line, right next to the insurance. $5,000 to $7,000 a year is roughly $130 a week, half your rent, every week, before anything else. If it is not on the page, your profit is just the car being sold off in pieces, and you are the one buying it back. Rule 3. Manage the empty week, not the weekly rate. 40 weeks rented at $250 beats 25 weeks at $350 every single time. Every hour that car sits still, the insurance runs, the note runs, and the value falls, and nothing comes in. Utilization is not a detail of this business. Utilization is this business. Rule 4. Buy boring, buy used, and buy it outright. The owner with no car payment nets roughly double the owner with one, on the same rent, in the same city. The bank is the most expensive passenger you will ever carry. Who gets burned? The person who finances a fleet of new cars. The person who confuses adjusted earnings with profit. The person who models 52 weeks of rent. And the person who buys one of these businesses without asking the 2 questions the listing left out. How old is the fleet, and how much of it is actually moving? Here is what nobody tells you when they hand you the weekly rate. You are not renting out a car. A car is not a room. When the guest checks out of a room, the room is still there. It did not get smaller. It did not lose $4,000 of value while they slept. This does. You own a thing that is being used up on a clock at 3 times the speed you priced it for. The rent was never income. The rent is the sound of the asset being consumed, 1 week at a time. And the only question that has ever mattered in this business is whether the check is bigger than the bite. So run it on your own car, or the one you were thinking about buying. What is your mileage clock? Be honest about the miles, the real ones, not the ones in the listing. Tell me below, and subscribe, because next time we take apart another asset that pays you while it disappears.